Get ready for an extremely active season.
Within 48 hours, that system could be a Category 4 hurricane buried on your coastline.
As we're still healing from Hurricane Ian.
Our shutters had blown open partway from the wind, and we were flooded.
What happens if another system heads our way, and who will pay?
If there's something of that magnitude or even close to it that happens again, I'm tossing the keys and walking away.
Protecting your family, protecting your home.
And with our data, we can predict where they're going as accurately as we can get it.
In the battle you may have to face again.
Don't wait until the winds blow. The season has begun.
Storm Watch 2024, ensuring your safety, ensuring your future.
What does this hurricane season look like? And where does Southwest Florida stand as a new season begins? I'm Lois Tomey.
I'm Chris Safati.
And I'm the Weather Authority Chief Meteorologist Matt Devitt. Let's get straight to the numbers. This year, NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is calling for 17 to 25 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, 4 to 7 becoming major hurricanes. Colorado State University researchers fall closely in line, predicting 23 named storms, 11 hurricanes, 5 major hurricanes, a well above average hurricane season. When it comes to determining storm surge, there's several ingredients that you have to factor in, including the size, intensity, how fast it's moving, the shape of our coastline, the angle of approach, the continental shelf, the lunar phase, and even the daily tides. When you have a bigger, stronger, and slower storm, that will promote greater storm surge. And also, if it coincides with landfall at a full moon or new moon, and obviously during our daily high tides. The continental shelf is also very important. For example, if you go off of the Atlantic coast, 30 miles offshore, it's 2,500 feet deep. Contrast that to 30 miles off of the Gulf, it's only 100 feet deep. And because the Gulf is more shallow with a gentle slope, that allows for more water to pile up, elevating our storm surge levels. So how do you factor in storm surge? So what you would do is, with a 15-foot storm surge forecast example, you have to know your elevation. So in this example, let's say 10 feet. You take the 15-foot storm surge forecast, deduct the 10, and that would leave you with a 5-foot surge flooding above ground where you live. Storm surge specialist Cody Fritz explains there's more to a storm than the category.
Well, the category of a hurricane only accounts for the wind intensity. That's only one factor in the contribution to the total water level or the storm surge impact that you might see. There are other factors that contribute to that total water level rise. That could be how big that storm is, again, how fast or slow it moves, where exactly it hits along the coastline. All of those factors matter.
Fritz also considers the Gulf of Mexico one of the most vulnerable areas in the world when it comes to storm surge, making it even more important for people along the water to understand storm surge.
While forecasting the exact path of a hurricane can be challenging, a narrowing cone helps to paint a more accurate picture. But if you're not in the cone, you can't let your guard down.
The Weather Authority meteorologist Zach Malak sat down with several experts from the National Hurricane Center to talk about the cone and the intensity of storms.
Year after year, no matter the storm, and especially when the storm is threatening our Southwest Florida coast, there is one graphic we show you that you are always drawn to, the forecast cone.
And here is that cone.
It primarily focuses on the track or the uncertainty in track.
What we saw in Ian is an over-reliance on the cone and an under-reliance on the watches and warnings.
That's because the cone does not represent all of the factors that you should be paying attention to, the hazards.
Worry about what kind of wind might it produce, what kind of storm surge might it produce, rainfall, tornadoes, even rip currents.
These are impacts that often extend far outside of the forecast cone, especially over the last few years.
The cone's gotten smaller because the track forecasts have gotten better, but storm size has not changed.
And unfortunately, oftentimes, we will have less time to prepare.
The nation's strongest hurricanes, the 10 strongest hurricanes to hit our country, all were tropical storms 3 days before.
The high-end Category 4s, the Category 5s, the storms like Ian, are all systems that form and make landfall within 3 or 4 days. They're not the Irmas that come all the way across the Atlantic and you have 7 or 10 or 14 days to watch.
And one thing that we are always watching are those hotter than usual sea surface temperatures that provide more fuel for storms.
Just being over those warm waters, they might go through rapid intensification at the very early start of their lifetime.
Now, sea surface temperatures have to be at least 80 degrees for a tropical storm to develop. The record hot sea surface temperatures we are seeing right now is one of the reasons we're expecting an active hurricane season. According to NOAA, the intensity of tropical systems is also projected to increase as our planet warms.
And it's scary because we're not going to have 5 days to prepare for those storms. It could pop up and 2 to 3 days later affect our coastline.
So this hurricane season, be sure to stay informed and focus on the unique impacts each storm brings. I'm Wink News Weather Authority meteorologist Zach Malak.
Sea surface temperatures right now are already around 90 degrees in the Gulf waters off our coast. Recent record high temperatures are one reason the Weather Authority warns of an active season.
Once a tropical storm or hurricane watch or warning is issued by the National Weather Service, Florida insurers typically put a moratorium in place, meaning you can't make changes to your homeowner's policy. And for most flood insurance, it's a 30-day waiting period. Meantime, thousands of families are still waiting for insurance checks after Hurricane Ian. In fact, April numbers from the state show, for one reason or another, nearly 32,000 claims are still open.
The Smith family knows that all too well. As Wink News consumer investigator Andriana Shepard explains, the family of 6 is living in their driveway as they battle Citizens Insurance.
If we can get back in, this is going to be your bedroom, right?
This interview was the longest Brittany Smith has sat in her house since Hurricane Ian. One look inside and you can see why. No walls, no doors, just bleak reminders of what these rooms used to be.
Every day when I come in here, it makes me sad that it's not our home. It has taken everything from us.
Her family of 6 has lived in this RV in the driveway of their Port Charlotte home since Hurricane Ian destroyed it.
At this point, we've been out of our house longer than we actually lived in it.
A long nightmare with no end in sight. Smith blames her insurer, Citizens Property Insurance, the state-run insurer of last resort.
We can't give up. This is our home. This is our family. All of our money is tied up into our home. We are not backing down. They should not be able to put families through what my family has been through the past year and a half.
She first hired a public adjuster to help with the claim, but she says Citizens ignored them. That's when she got attorney Vanessa Ross on her team. Ross used to represent Citizens Insurance. Now she helps homeowners get their homes and lives back.
I just tell them to keep the faith.
Ross told me contractors estimated it would take about $260,000 to get the Smith's house fixed. Flood insurance paid their portion, but Ross claims Citizens has lowballed and delayed the lawsuit.
We're still dealing with the additional living expense, the price of the camper that were never reimbursed, the other expenses that were incurred because she couldn't live in her house.
Why are you making this longer for my family to have to go through? It's causing more stress on my family.
But even if the Smiths get all the money they need to repair their home, can they?
I'm so worried about the 50% rule. It's like I already put out money for the roof. If all the permitted work goes over that certain limit, we can't rebuild. Then what do we do?
And the road to recovery gets longer. Andriana Shepard, Wink News.
We reached out to Citizens, but a spokesperson said they could not comment because of ongoing litigation related to the claim.
To help you better prepare before ever filing a claim or a storm ever rolls in, I looked back at Ian. It changed everything. Here are some of the things that we learned and that I learned that just might help you out if we ever face another storm like it.
Call the contractor you want to use immediately. Don't wait for your insurance company to come out and give you permission.
People like Diane are the new experts in rebuilding after a hurricane. Her first step after a storm, call your contractor.
Even if you call the first day after the hurricane, they're going to be way behind already.
That means having someone you know you can contact in advance. After Ian, I learned that's good advice. You can even do that before you get a claim number from your insurance company. But together, once you're safe yourself, the claim number and the contractor are your first priorities. And if you flood, when you get the claim number, ask the insurance company rep if they have a list of drying companies that they either recommend or require you to use. Before there's any hint of a storm, get your pictures ready. A lot of us know to do that, but Ian taught us to do it differently. Floods can take big appliances like your fridge and make them float away, which makes it hard to prove it was in your house when the storm hit.
So this year, when you're taking or updating your pictures, first, take a picture of the refrigerator like you normally would, but then look for the serial number. Usually it's inside, and get a shot of that in case you need it.
Take pictures of all your serial numbers inside your house, down to the can opener, and then go outside and take it at the AC condenser. That'll prove you own it if it's gone and make it easy to figure out the cost to replace it. And when it comes to preparing, if a storm forms, this is the most important thing so many of us learned.
My one thing would be when they call mandatory evacuation, evacuate. We had a couple of neighbors that didn't, and they were on their tabletops trying to stay out of the water.
Take pictures and video of everything. I had videos ready to go after Ian, only to find out my insurance company only accepted still pictures, which added a lot of work.
And think about your seasonal neighbors. My family ended up checking on friends' homes while they were up north. Make sure you'll have access to their neighborhood and their home in the wake of a disaster.
And whether it's your boat, your home, your hurricane kit, or your evacuation zone, you can find all of that information in the Wink News Hurricane Guide 2024.
And you can pick one up right now at public stores across Southwest Florida. Still ahead, keeping the lights on after a storm.
Plus,
the hurricane hunters are getting ready to soar. I'll take you inside these high-flying meteorological machines next.
And don't forget to pack up your hurricane kit.
Winds howling, skies darkening, the angry Gulf waters rising, the chaos of a hurricane.
But as the Weather Authority meteorologist Greg Rule explains, what you experience depends on where you are during a storm.
Here's what a hurricane looks like on satellite. Now, the eye is the center of the storm. The calm caused by sinking air, typically cloud-free and rain-free. Now, the surrounding part, the eye wall, this is typically the strongest part of the storm with the heaviest rain, the highest storm surge, and the strongest winds. But did you know hurricanes have 4 different distinct quadrants, and depending upon how the storm hits and moves on land, you could experience more or less damage. Now, the right side of the storm system is typically referred to as the dirty side of the storm, typically due to a higher risk of tornadoes. The highest winds can usually be found in the front right quadrant, so if you're on this side of the storm system, which was the case with Ian, you can also expect the worst storm surge. Now, on the opposite side, the left side is typically considered the weakest side of the storm system, but we all know any side of a hurricane is extremely dangerous. So no matter where you find yourself, a hurricane should always be taken seriously. The Weather Authority will keep you updated on any developing storm systems this upcoming hurricane season. I'm meteorologist Greg Rule, Wink News.
And then there are those who fly directly into the world's worst weather, the hurricane hunters, straight into the howling winds, blinding rain, and severe air currents before entering the calm of the storm's eye. Wink News reporter Liz Byro shares their critical mission.
Jose, Maria, Nate, Florence.
As an aerospace engineer for NOAA Hurricane Hunters, Nick Underwood has flown many storms.
Going towards Fort Myers, worst flight I've been on in my 8 years of doing this.
You guessed it, Underwood's talking about Hurricane Ian. Underwood took this video as he and the NOAA team flew into a rapidly intensifying Hurricane Ian.
The turbulence was intense, the lightning outside was intense, there was just a lot going on.
You can see a glimpse of the lightning outside the window. Inside, beds flew off their bunks. Coffee spilled everywhere.
But all the while, we're flying through the storm, collecting the important scientific data that we need to better forecast where the storm's going to go, how strong it's going to be.
Underwood was inside a plane called Kermit, a WP-3D like this one. His role? Sit in the back and launch instruments out of it.
The last few years, we've been launching drones out of the airplane, and so we have an operator on board. The drone can fly down to a lot lower altitude than we can safely get to and collect data that we otherwise wouldn't be able to get.
Despite extreme turbulence, NOAA crews successfully launched a 27-pound Altius 600 drone, which collected critical measurements at that low altitude while the flight crew could find safer air. All that data collected by the drone and the crew used to make life-saving decisions. Liz Byro, Wink News.
The power of water. If there's any doubt left after Ian, take a look at this video from Fort Myers downtown waterfront. A 50-foot yacht weighs around 50,000 pounds. These big boats were tossed around as if they were toys in a bathtub. But there are ways to improve the odds that a storm surge will be smooth sailing for your boat.
Wink News anchor Taylor Petrus shares how to batten down the hatches so you can get back out and enjoy the water after the storm.
When a storm has its sights set on Southwest Florida, Neil Pignatano and his boat Kitsune are ready.
And the boat stayed in place. The boat did the best of anything.
With a 10-foot storm surge in his Cape Coral Canal during Hurricane Ian, Pignatano's boat made it through.
Oh, this has actually gone through the hurricane, and it almost looks brand new.
Pignatano cranked his boat up high and latched it down with the help of the swing stopper system.
And that's the biggest cause of boats getting damaged in hurricanes when they're on the lift, is they don't stop the swing, and the boat and the lift keep crashing into the pilings, and eventually the pilings fail.
But if you don't have a sophisticated system like this, there are other preparations you can take to keep your boat in place.
You want to make sure your cockpit drains are open. If some water does get into the bilge, you want that to be able to pump out. Otherwise, your boat ends up sinking itself.
Carl McGrath with America's Boating Club teaches local boaters the best strategies for keeping their boats where they belong during a storm, whether it's on a lift.
So your boat's got to be able to go to the bottom of the canal, and you have to choose how much surge you think you can handle.
Or stays on land.
You can't tie it down with a tent stake. You have to use 4-foot tent stakes in concrete.
The time to prepare is now because
you don't want to go out there at the last minute and try to do something, particularly when the wind starts to blow.
There could only be one storm the whole season, but if it comes your way, you know, it could ruin everything for you.
And carefully check your insurance policy. Some policies dictate what you must do with your boat in preparation for a storm. In Cape Coral, I'm Taylor Petrus, Wink News.
In the event of a storm and power outages, both LCEC and Florida Power and Light work to get the lights back on as soon as possible.
Power is typically restored according to critical functions. Hospitals and 911 centers get priority, followed by highly populated areas.
I'm Weather Authority meteorologist Juliana Mejia, and until those lights come on, most people rely on generators. But an important warning, never use one indoors or even in a partially enclosed space like a garage. Keep generators away from windows and doors to prevent carbon monoxide from seeping into your home. Carbon monoxide is odorless and colorless, so you won't know if it's there, and it is deadly. Back to you.
You also need to know your zone. Most of our coastal communities, and those of you living along the river or Lake O, are in Zone A. That's the most vulnerable and likely first to get evacuated. Southwest Florida ranges from Zone A to F, depending on where you live. Time now for a little tropical trivia.
Here's the Weather Authority meteorologist Lauren Kreidler.
Hurricane Ian reached what category at landfall? Is it A, a Category 2, B, a Category 3, C, a Category 4, or D, a Category 5? The correct answer for this one is C, a Category 4 storm. Hurricane Ian made landfall as a very strong Category 4 storm. In fact, it reached winds of 150 miles per hour. To be considered a Category 5 storm, it would need wind speeds of 157 miles per hour or greater. Back to you.
Now that you have your home and boat ready, there's one more kit to put together.
What you need for your pets.
In the event of a major tropical event, you can always catch us on the radio.
Here's a look at the storm names for the 2024 hurricane season, which runs through November 30th.
If you do leave your home because of a storm, emergency managers say you don't have to go far, just head inland.
Or if you go to a shelter, take a 30-day supply of medications, copies of prescriptions, any special medical equipment you may need, and personal identification. And as the Weather Authority meteorologist Nikki Sheeks explains, you also need to make a pet plan.
As a storm approaches and you prepare to leave, the Gulf Coast Humane Society wants to remind you, don't forget your pets.
If it's too dangerous for you to stay at home, it's too dangerous for the pet to stay.
Pack up 3 days worth of food and water. Make sure you pack bowls, treats, and toys. And most shelters will allow pets. You just need to make sure you have up-to-date vaccination records. A recent photo of your pet would be helpful just in case they do get lost. And remember, after the storm, do not leave your pet unsupervised as there could be dangerous debris. In Fort Myers, for Wink News, I'm Nikki Sheeks.
Plan ahead, prepare now.
And pick up a copy of the Wink News Hurricane Guide. It has everything you just heard.
You can also watch the special presentation over and over again. Just go to winknews.com, go to Facebook, and share it with your friends.
So this hurricane season, tune into Wink News and Wink Live Doppler 3X interactive radar.
3 times more powerful and 3 times more accurate.
In Southwest Florida's most powerful weather tool whenever storms or severe weather move in.